Hey, Bob. Thanks for using Racer 360. Excited to be working with you here. It was a fun weekend overall, so I hope you had a great time as well. It looks like you're driving really well. There's going to be one main concept that I want to focus in on that'll really kind of apply to any track you go to. There'll be some corner line adjustments here and there that I think I'll highlight as well. But I want to focus in on our initial throttle application spot. Trying to spend less time as well at maintenance throttle, more time kind of at full throttle or off throttle. So going into turn one, the first thing that I'm picking out here is kind of if I were to word how I want to work with you here is the first step is going to be working on our initial throttle application spot. That once we really get that kind of worked on, the next thing, the harder thing I want to work on is going to have a slower initial turn-in, but an earlier turn-in as well. I don't want to focus on that too much right here because that's going to be a little bit too much information right away, but I do want to point it out just so you're aware the next step that we're going to be working on is actually starting to bend it in right about back here. But the key to that is having much slower initial turn-ins so that you can apex at the same point, but roll a little bit more speed down to the apex and actually get a better exit. So the first thing, the main area that I want to work with you on here on this lap is I'm going to start, see right here, using your data system here and listening as well. We're picking up throttle here. This is going to be a little bit of an explanation, but just roll with me here. I want to have you delay your initial throttle application until the apex point, until the point that you can start to unwind the steering wheel. So what's going on is when we pick up the throttle here, before the apex, while we're still turning and still actually turning more aggressively, we are shifting the weight of the car off the front end towards the rear end. And where the weight goes is where the grip goes. So we're taking away front grip. We're inducing understeer. So now what's happening is we've lifted off the front end, we've induced understeer, and if I go further around this corner, we're understeer, 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 understeer. That's going to delay when we can get back to full throttle because of that understeer. So you notice here, we're only really getting to full throttle. Is maybe a slight telemetry issue. Let's see here, kind of back in this section where I think there's two things we could do better. I think once we delay that initial throttle application, we'll naturally be able to roll more entry speed. We'll be able to get to full throttle earlier. So what's going on here is what I would like to see you do, and this is going to be breaking a habit. So it's going to take some time. It's going to take discipline, and we are going to take one step back in terms of overall lap time to take 5 or 6 steps forward. So the first step in what I call this 3-step process, this is a very usual thing and a usual progression that we work on with drivers, is I want to see you do everything the same, entering the corner, same break points, same entry speed, everything. I want to see you just be very disciplined and say, hey, I am not allowed to get to throttle until that apex point, until the point I can start to unwind the wheel. So what's the reason why we're picking up throttle this early is there's 2 reasons typically, and I think the second reason is more the reason why you are. The first is we have a car that has a ton of oversteer, and we're really trying to settle the rear of the car. That may be a small reason that you're trying to fight the rotation. You don't like the rotation, so you may be consciously doing a little bit. But I think the second reason is more the reason why you're picking up throttle too early. The second reason is we feel like we've overslowed. And when we overslow, it means get back to throttle to fix our issues. I want to start breaking the bond in our mind of overslowing equals throttle. Because what happens is when we pick up throttle this early, like I said, you're taking weight off the front end, you're inducing understeer, and you're kind of taking, let's say, the ceiling of the car, the overall grip, the ultimate amount of grip would be here if we trail brake in and keep that weight on the front end and let the front end carve down the apex. And we're moving it from here down to here. And it may feel better, and you may still feel like you're at the limit of the car, but that's because you brought down that limit of the car. So if we can delay our initial throttle to be later around the corner and be disciplined, I think what's going to happen is we're going to naturally start to roll in more entry speed. Essentially, what I'm wanting the brain to do is if you can be disciplined and say, hey, no throttle until I want to start unwinding the steering wheel. You're not allowing your brain to choose that kind of bad habit of picking up throttle to solve its issue, and the issue is overslowing. What's going to happen is your brain's going to naturally look for new ways to solve its problem. Now, there's only two solutions to overslowing. One is the one we don't want, which is picking up initial throttle too early. The second option is what we do want, which is rolling more entry speed. Because what's going to happen is if you enter this corner the exact same, and you're saying, hey, I'm not allowed to get the throttle until I get to this point, initially you're going to feel like you're going so slow. You're going to feel like you're really overslowing. But once we break the bond of throttle, now you're going to feel like, okay, I have to roll more entry speed. What's going to happen is then you're naturally going to start to trail brake. You're going to have more weight on the front end. The car is going to have the weight in where it's supposed to, and it's just going to work better for you. You're going to have much more entry speed and just as good of exits, if not better exits. Because what's going to happen here is, essentially, if we're using data to talk about throttle, and if you're not familiar with data, don't worry at all. I just like to explain things in different ways for these videos. If this would be a simple time graph, this is later in the corner here. This is 0% throttle at the bottom, 100% throttle at the top. Your throttle probably looks something like this. We spent a long time at maintenance throttle, and then we get back to full throttle up here. What I'd like to see is more entry speed, delaying that initial throttle until much later, and it's not quite an on-off switch, but you're going to be back to full throttle earlier. You're going to have less steering input because you're going to have less understeer. You're going to unwind the wheel earlier, so you have better exits and better entries by delaying that initial throttle application spot. So the first step of this whole process is being disciplined of saying no initial throttle until the apex. So that's going to be our taking a step back. What's going to happen then is you're going to naturally feel like I'm so slow at this point, and you're going to want to start to bring in more entry speed. So the second part of the process here is once you get to that point, what I want you to think about is focusing on the back end of the brake zone and working on that to roll in more entry speed. I don't want to immediately say, okay, well, now I can just brake deeper, because we're already actually braking a little bit too deep later on the track. And that's going to be the last step in the process. The last thing we do on a racetrack is challenge our brake zones. So once you feel like I need to roll more entry speed, I want you to focus on that back end of the brake zone. So here I would say your brake zone, let's say if you've got a pretty good initial spike, we're braking, threshold braking here, and then we get off. So now I'm talking about brakes. So 0% brake pressure at the top, 100% brake pressure 0% brake pressure at the bottom, 100% brake pressure at the top. Sorry about that. And simple time graph. What I want you to start focusing on is once you feel like you want to roll more entry speed, I want you to brake exactly the same initial brake pressure, initial brake spot. But I want to see you get off of peak brake pressure earlier, and I actually want to see you extend your brake zone all the way to the apex, but with much lighter brake pressure. So you're going to be braking for a longer period of time, but with lighter pressure. And the difference of these lines, the different slopes of the lines here, is where that initial, where that entry speed will come from initially. And you're going to naturally work on feathering off the brakes, trail braking deeper into the corner, and that'll help the front end carve down to the apex. It'll just work better for you. Once you master this, and once you feel like you still can't bring in enough entry speed and you're trail braking all the way down, at that point, we can work up our initial brake zone, but it's only the last thing we do. So the first step is no throttle until the apex point, being disciplined. The second step is once you master that and get that really working, you're going to want to naturally bring in more entry speed. That's when we focus on the back end of the brake zone, trailing off of peak brake pressure, carrying the brakes longer into the corner down the apex, and then unwinding and getting the throttle at that point. And then finally, I do think we can brake slightly deeper, but we have to work out the first two steps first so that when we brake deeper, we're combining it with the rest of the corner and we're not just completely missing the apex and missing our turning point and not rolling entry speed. Braking deeper is only better when you combine it with everything else. So hopefully that makes sense. It'll really have the car work better for you. And I promise you, once you do it once you start to get a feel for this and do it once or twice right, you're going to be like, oh man, the car just turned. I had so much more speed. I was able to get the throttle. It just works better. You're fighting the car less at a faster speed. So this will be the main thing I want to focus in on. I'll show you a few other times around the lap where we're starting to get to throttle too early. The next thing is, I think we can get out to this exit curve a little bit earlier, start to unwind the wheel a little bit earlier. You notice we only really get out there in parallel with the exit curve at the end of it. Typically, I like to be out in parallel with this curve now already. So just get those eyes up on exit. That's typically a sign for me that a driver has low eyes, that we're not looking through the corner and trying to open our hands as early as possible. So just a small example would be here. You know, so at this point, I'm looking at my brake zone. Sorry, let me get back a little bit. At this point, I'm looking for my brake zone. Right now, I'm starting to look for my turn-in marker. Right now, I'm looking at my apex already, looking at the apex. Right now, I'm starting to look for that exit curve already and trying to find out when can I start to unwind the wheel. So that's how far I want your eyes in advance. Exit, exit, exit. Okay, start unwinding, unwinding, unwinding. Use that track on exit. That'll really help you. So turn 2 here. Nice job through this section. I want to see you maybe brake a little bit earlier. Ultimately, I want to start to see you turning in earlier to this right-hander, and I want to get my right front all the way up next to this apex curve by the start of it. It's a really cambered corner, and the more camber is down inside there, so it helps us hook the car and turn it for you. We kind of miss that, so we're missing a lot of grip. You can see how we don't get down there. We're missing all of this camber in here. So get down there earlier. You can roll a little bit more speed, and that'll really help you just hook the car through this whole section. Nice job on exit. Really happy with you on exit here. That's perfect. So this next area here is total entry speed corner through here. I actually don't really care about when I get back to throttle. And you can see here, we're starting a little bit to pick up that throttle before the apex point once again. So the apex is right here. Not as bad as turn 1. We're missing it by a half car width or so, but nice area to work on that discipline as well of trail braking down to here. That'll allow you to actually have an easier time keeping it right here because you'll have more front grip. So I want to see you almost go too far the other direction on trail braking. Ideally for me, I'm trail braking past the apex here to help keep that front end to the right while rolling more entry speed through this section. And then I might just have a quick stab of the throttle, back to the left. Through here, you look pretty good. Through here, this whole section, I think you look good, 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 good. Nice job. I would just like to see you maybe have a squirt of full throttle here, and then maybe a full lift through this section. So you can see here, we're kind of partial throttle all the way through this, and that just means we're not really getting the front end ever to work with us. So sometimes I like to see myself be more aggressive to throttle, get off, spend more time coasting, and then get back to full throttle. And essentially what that does is when we're kind of on this partial throttle, like here, let me go back to the entry. So like here on entry, the weight's kind of in the middle of the car. It's not really on the front. It's not really on the back. It's lost. And the car just normally, the cars don't like that. They like really being off throttle or on throttle typically. So I like to avoid spending I want to spend as little time as possible on maintenance throttle. So what I'd like to see here is you be a little bit more aggressive to throttle here, back to full throttle. And at this point, have a full lift. That'll send more weight on the front end. It'll help the car rotate nicely so that you have more front grip to this point. And then what I'm hoping is, bam, at this point when we get back to throttle, you'll be, bam, back to full throttle, already back in this area, or we only get back to full throttle way out over here. So this helps you roll a little bit more entry speed, get the weight of the car to work a little bit better, get back to full throttle earlier. Next section here, really, really happy. Nice job using all the road. Nice setup for here. Perfect job through this section. Really perfect. Also through here, little bit early to throttle once again. Just want to point that out. So you can see we're back to throttle in here. I'd like to see you wait. back to throttle here, and then you'll be probably back to full throttle earlier as well. Through this long sweeper, nice job being aggressive through here, driving it in pretty hard. You probably did the best job of anyone I saw this weekend. You're also wider out through this section. Awesome, awesome, awesome. One small note, and this is a little bit more car specific. In a car some cars that are stiffer are going to be more affected by this bump that's right in here. So I actually missed this apex on purpose and had my, let me get back to the right drawing tool, had my right side tires go just around the outside of it like this. And there was a lot more grip that was not being affected by this bump. So if you feel like your car, if you're delaying throttle, if that bump's holding you back, I'd like to see you try being about a car width off of this apex, and you'll notice the road's a lot smoother there. If you feel like the bump doesn't really affect your car much, then keep doing what you're doing. This is just totally, hey, let me point this out and give you something to think about here. Your car doesn't look too bad through this section, but if it is delaying your full throttle, feel like you're upsetting yourself, try to just be a car width off of it. You'll notice there's no bump out there, and see which one works better for you. But that's just a small note. Do this corner here, just make sure you're getting all the way back to the right side of the road as you set up for this fast left-hander here. We're not using all of the road out here, which means you're making the radius of this corner more tight than it should be, and we're not full throttle through here. So I'd rather just be disciplined, get it all the way back to the right to set up for this left. You'll make the left an easier time for you to roll more speed through. Up over the hill, intimidating corner because it's blind. Let me just show you where we're picking up initial throttle. Once again, you know what I'm going to say, initial throttle too early. I want to wait. Now, as I can start to unwind the wheel, start to get feed in that throttle, that's going to allow you to bring in just a little bit more entry speed. You can see it's just a car length or two. We're working on small little concepts here, and we're just going to get the car working better for us through this whole section. Through here, nice job, perfect. So this is the corner where I'm seeing we're working too hard on braking deep, and we're not able to combine the rest of the corner. So I'd like to see actually an earlier, slower turning come here and focus on trailing off the brakes and rolling more speed through it. But because I'm going to play at full speed, because we're focusing on braking deep through this section, we have too much entry speed. You can see we're going wide here. I want to see you turn in earlier. And again, this is the corner where we need to work on our initial throttle the most. You can see initial throttle comes here. I want to see you wait. Now is where I want to see you pick up that initial throttle. And that's going to help you just roll a lot more entry speed. So what's going to happen is it's going to look something like waiting, bam, same initial brake application, hard brakes, trail off, turning in, trailing. I'm much closer to the curb right now, trailing. I'm along the curb, trailing. Last little bit of brakes. It's just like your big toes touching the brake pedal. Off the brakes, and now is when I want to start feeding in that throttle, probably back to full throttle by here. And I've got more entry speed because I have the weight of the car carving down. That weight on the front end is just going to allow you to bring more entry speed down there. So focus. Let's back up that initial brake zone a little bit. Focus on slightly earlier turning, slower hands, earlier down to that apex, and trail braking all the way through it. And it's, really you can see how early I want to start getting off that peak threshold. And after turning, it's really, I'm not trying to trail brake to continue to slow down the car. It's almost more like I've got just a foot on the brake pedal. I feel like it's just my big toe resting on it. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm doing it more to keep weight on the front end, more so than slowing down the car. Through this last section of the track, awesome job. You do a really nice job in the last corner of picking up initial throttle only at the apex point. I just want to highlight that to you. Through the chicanes or S's here, nice. I got nothing to add. You look perfect through there. Coming in this last corner, let's see here. So nice job trailing off. I can see it. Yes. Trailing. Look at this trail brake. Look how the front end just hooks for you here. Bam. That's exactly where I want to see you get back to throttle. Now, typically you would get back to full throttle here and use your hands, but we have a car behind us. Nice job letting it by. But that's exactly what you're doing there in the last corner. That's what I want to see you do everywhere there. Just trail braking down the apex, and then as soon as you can start to unwind the wheel, that's where you attack the throttle. Hopefully that makes sense. Once you've been able to watch this, digest everything, let me know if you've got any questions. We're always here for you at Races 360. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, got value out of it. We'd love to be a part of your journey on this motorsports challenge. As we said, there's a few higher level things that we continue to work on. But the first concept I want to focus in on is this initial throttle application, delaying it. From there, we can continue to help you grow as a driver. So thanks again for using Races 360, and hopefully see you at the track soon.